Today on Investigate TV, billions in settlement dollars being shelled out by the opioid industry. But advocates say more needs to be done to involve those directly affected.
My concern is that none of this money is going to go help impacted families.
Plus, a deadly combination. Federal law enforcement sees a sharp increase in fentanyl mixed with a horse tranquilizer, with users developing severe wounds, including rotting flesh.
Xylazine, there is no human use.
Investigate TV starts right now. Hello and welcome to Investigate TV. I'm Lee Zurich. More than $50 billion. That's how much the prescription opioid industry has so far agreed to pay state and local governments. That's for settling numerous lawsuits in the wake of the overdose epidemic. But as our team and partners at KFF Health News found, it's not always clear how that money will be used. Carice Jackman explains.
Everywhere you turn in Jacqueline Lewis's home, you'll spot pictures of her son, Sean.
He loved taking care of his family.
Sean also loved art, the outdoors, but more than anything, he adored his daughter, Ava.
I think he got that one special because it has your name on it.
He did.
On top of being a dad, Sean also had a soft spot for those suffering.
And he had a heart for people that were broken because he felt broken.
Broken because for 20 years, Sean battled substance abuse.
What effect does it have on a family? What kind of ripple effect does it have?
I think as a parent, there's a lot of anguish. It's a 24/7. It doesn't go away. I just watched him every day get up and fight to live. He was fighting just to live.
For 2 decades, Sean battled addiction, but that ended in October 2022 when he died of an overdose. At the time, his daughter, Ava, just 7 years old.
I see her. I have to watch her on days where she's curled up in a fetal position crying, wailing, because she wants her daddy and he's not here.
After losing her son, Jacqueline is now raising her granddaughter. An overdose also took Ava's mother's life. 2 parents' deaths impacting the life of this little girl.
And I know it's going to progress as she gets older. She's going to have a lot more questions. There's going to be a lot more to explain to her when she's better able to understand it.
Sean's substance abuse centered around opioids, the class of powerful pain-reducing drugs responsible for the majority of overdoses, sometimes prescribed by doctors, but often bought and sold illegally on the streets or online. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 500,000 people have died of drug overdoses involving opioids since 2010. Sean was originally prescribed an opioid for scoliosis pain.
In middle school, the doctors started prescribing him pain medications. We didn't know they were addictive at that time.
Stories like his have fueled thousands of lawsuits against opioid manufacturers, distributors, and retailers. Families of those who died and the communities devastated by the overdose epidemic are demanding accountability from the industry for allegedly downplaying the risk associated with the drugs. So far, those lawsuits have resulted in industry changes and more than $50 billion in settlement dollars that will go to state and local governments across the country. But after that, exactly where that money is going can be difficult to pin down. The settlement set out general guidelines for spending, requiring most of the funds go towards certain types of efforts to reduce overdoses. Things like prevention education programs, overdose reversal kits, or addiction treatment facilities. But state and local governments only have to publicly report for money spent outside those categories. Investigate TV found, so far, only a small number have, and it's the companies that settled that are tasked with enforcing the rules. Governments can offer greater transparency, but our partners at KFF Health News and an attorney at opioidsettlementtracker.com found few efforts to do so. According to their analysis, only around 1/3 of states have promised the public detailed reporting of where millions of dollars are going.
From a public health standpoint, community members should be educated about what's being done with the settlement monies before they roll out.
Diana Fishbein is a professor and researcher at the University of North Carolina, one of a handful of states committed to sharing spending details with the public. Her primary focus is prevention.
Historically, it's been dramatically underfunded and underappreciated, and that contrasts with the data that's been amassed in prevention showing how potent it can be.
Fishbein and other experts say one of the most impactful ways communities can better invest in prevention is by starting early and addressing the root causes of addiction, such as trauma, food insecurity, or lack of access to health care.
But we don't focus so much on providing the services that are needed for children to grow up healthfully and have the supports in their social environment that will avert their pathways away from substance use altogether.
But what researchers suggest isn't necessarily playing out in reality. When InvestigateTV and KFF Health News look for examples of how local governments are approaching youth prevention, we found multiple examples of settlement money going to a program that's been criticized in the past.
Now we're saying no to drugs.
The Drug Abuse Resistance Education Program, or DARE, emerged in the 1980s, with law enforcement educating kids on resisting drugs. But studies in the 1990s cast doubt on whether DARE actually worked, and now some critics question whether that money should be going to the program.
We have a brand new DARE.
DARE reworked its curriculum in the early 2000s to address the concerns.
It's more student-based than instructor-based is one difference.
We traveled to Los Angeles, the birthplace of the DARE program, to ask how they revamped and improved the program and why it should be part of settlement dollars when its outcomes have been questioned.
The old curriculum was 17 lessons, and it was a didactic download from the officer. The new curriculum is 10 lessons long. The officer only talks 7 or 8 minutes.
Instead of framing drugs as a scary thing for teens, Francisco Pagueros, CEO of DARE America, says the new program includes the students in the conversation, like role-playing, and talks about how their decisions will affect their health and families.
Do you think this is a good use for the money?
Yes, it can be, if it's approached correctly. If you're looking to just spend money, it's not going to be productive.
DARE isn't alone in getting money for drug education. Opioid settlement money allowed this program, called Project Success, to expand to nearly all public school districts in Rhode Island. The program, which, like DARE, also started in the 80s, trains professional counselors in addiction prevention education using sessions like this and places them in public schools. But Project Success goes beyond the classroom and simply teaching. Counselors also work one-on-one with students, including those who are at high risk or currently battling substance issues.
By placing a student assistance counselor in the school, for many kids, that is the caring adult in their life who's consistent throughout their high school and middle school career.
That was her favorite shirt he wore, so she wanted to keep that.
Back in Ohio, supporting children at higher risk of addiction is something Jacqueline Lewis wants her state leaders to use settlement money for, especially for kids like her granddaughter. But Ohio is one of the states that has been criticized for not including the public in the conversation.
My concern is that none of this money is going to go help impacted families.
For now, she takes things one day at a time. The days are tough. The tears still come. But she keeps going, fighting for prevention and transparency when it comes to funding. For herself, for Ava, and to honor Sean.
So far, governments have received around $3 billion of the more than $50 billion in settlement dollars that will be paid out by opioid manufacturers, distributors, and retailers.
No. He breathing? Do you know? No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Coming up, the calls of a crisis. Quiet small-town life interrupted by a rash of opioid overdoses. That story after the break. Welcome back to Investigate TV. A silent killer, fentanyl, wreaks havoc on communities big and small. The drug's deadly grip was all too apparent in a quiet South Carolina town one fateful weekend. 11 overdoses, 4 of which were fatal in just 24 hours. Greg Adeline obtained the 911 calls that illustrate the panic and horror created by this deadly drug. A warning, some of the audio you're about to hear may be disturbing to some viewers.
30 minutes east of Columbia, 30 miles down I-20, sits the quiet Kershaw County hamlet of Camden, a town of just under 8,000 people. On Thursday, November 10th, 2022, the day started just like any other, quietly. But the sleepy silence of small-town life was soon interrupted by the wake-up calls of a crisis.
Kershaw County 911.
Brother Hunter, you got room 202.
What is wrong with your girlfriend?
She was not responding.
She's not responding?
No, ma'am.
Okay, is she breathing?
An overdose at a Kershaw County motel, a woman unconscious as her boyfriend pleads for her to come back to life, repeating her name in an attempt to will it so.
No.
Is she breathing? Do you know?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Hold on.
Bonnie.
Don't hang up.
Bonnie.
Don't hang up.
Oh, Lord Jesus. You can go.
Later that night, another chilling call.
911. I need you to come to my house. I came home and my parents, I did not waking up in the outside. My mom's laying on the ground.
2 overdoses, 2 parents unconscious in a carport.
What is going on? What happened? I don't know. I came home from the basketball game and then I saw my mom. She's laying on the carport and my dad, he's bent over and I don't know. Neither one of them are answering. But my mom, she's making this weird noise and I don't know what's going on.
A frantic daughter crying for help.
Please, just hurry up and come. All right, hang on. Don't hang up with me, okay? Take a deep... my brother. Ma'am, slow down. County, we also need maybe EMS and fire. Mommy. Is she doing it? Is she breathing?
In all, Kershaw County EMS responded to 11 overdose calls in one 24-hour period from Thursday, November 10th to Friday, the 11th. 4 of them were fatal. Jim Edge is the head of the paramedic unit in Kershaw County.
So, about 20 or 30 minutes during the busy time of the day, an overdose was going out. I believe every crew ran at least one, and a couple of crews ran 2 or 3.
The main culprit, drugs laced with fentanyl, a powerful opiate used to manage pain for terminal cancer patients. The drug is 100 times more powerful than morphine, its grip on this community touching young and old.
We've had 2, at least 2 in the last year in this county. A 14-year-old that got into something, as well as a 19-month with an M old that got into something that somebody in that house had that had fentanyl in it.
Down King Street, news of the November overdoses reached Mara Jones.
To have close to 19 overdoses and then 4 of them end up in fatalities and due to a bad batch of cocaine with fentanyl in it, that was devastating.
Jones is the executive director at the Alpha Center, a behavioral health and drug rehabilitation center in Camden. Alpha stands for All Life's Problems Have Answers. The answer to these deaths, she says, is action.
So there's going to be a community task force initiated utilizing some of those lawsuit opioid dollars coming in, because we've got to do more to combat what is happening in our communities.
In addition, Jones says that the Alpha Center distributes Narcan, a medication that counteracts the effects of fentanyl, no questions asked.
Individual, when they're using, they don't know what other substances are going to be in the drug that they're using. And so I tell individuals, if you have someone you love and care about, make sure that you have Narcan on hand.
But while Narcan may save a life, Edge says it also keeps the true scope of the problem hidden.
I can't tell you how many cases occurred that we don't even know about that day because people are, they have Narcan at home and they might OD and their partner, friend, whatever, squirt some Narcan in their nose, and we don't even get those calls.
The other problem, says Jones, is the false belief that many carry that fentanyl is someone else's problem.
And I hate to say it, we get desensitized to it because we hear it so much until it's someone that you care about.
It's why that weekend in November lingers. 4 deaths and nearly 20 overdoses in the span of several days. In the face of that haunting reality, in this view from the front lines, Jones says that there's still so much work to do to get this silent killer caught. In the meantime, the fight continues to save one life at a time.
But when you talk about life's work, when somebody walks in and they're struggling, they want answers right then and there. And sometimes they don't believe there's an answer. So the biggest thing we can offer them is hope.
Hope in a barren place.
911.
Yes, I have a man here. I think he's overdosing.
You got an overdose? You know where?
I'm assuming. He used to do that heroin, that whatever they call that down stuff, or fentanyl, I think, I guess, or whatever. And then it's like he used to do it, and I thought he wasn't doing it no more. And it's like he was fine, and he was talking to me. Everything was fine. He was just talking, and all of a sudden he just started talking gibberish, like, and then leaning forward, and he wouldn't wake up.
Up next, a growing threat, a powerful sedative approved for veterinary use being mixed with fentanyl, while the federal government says it's the deadliest drug threat facing the country. After the break. Welcome back to Investigate TV. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration warns of a sharp increase in fentanyl being mixed with xylazine, a powerful veterinary tranquilizer. The mixture, something the DEA has seized in 48 states, places users at an even higher risk of a fatal overdose. 1, because of its sedative effect, and 2, because it's not an opioid, meaning drugs that reverse opioid-related overdoses will not work. Lynn Kawano in Honolulu tells us how health officials are trying to keep the so-called zombie drug from spreading on the streets.
Veterinarian Manuel Jimenez needs to do a checkup on Brownie, a 1,000-pound horse.
She'll start to get a little bit unstable on her feet.
He uses a mixture of drugs, including xylazine, to make procedures tolerable for large animals. Xylazine is not new in the equine vet world, but it is a dangerous new trend in the world of illegal street drugs.
There's no label for human use. A lot of the drugs we use are basically the same drugs that your doctor would use, but xylazine, there is no human use.
That's not stopping people from using it as an additive, making dangerous ones like heroin and the more powerful fentanyl even more deadly. The Drug Enforcement Agency put out an alert saying the mixture has been seized in 48 of 50 states, and that includes Hawaii. We've had 1 suspected overdose.
Under investigation as we speak is a case that happened the latter portion of last year where xylazine was in the system of a drug-related overdose combined with fentanyl.
Xylazine, often called tranq or the zombie drug, prolongs the high from opioids.
That nodding effect, that feeling of a calming sensation. So that's why it's popular. And also the cartels use it because it's cheaper than fentanyl.
The combination is behind a wave of overdoses on the East Coast where side effects are so bad, mobile medical vehicles have been set up to treat one of the ghastly symptoms, open sores and rotting flesh at the injection sites of repeat users. In Philadelphia, 90% of opioid samples on the street in 2021 contained xylazine. Hawaii is typically a few years behind the East Coast when it comes to drug trends.
It's slowly making its way here, and so this is sort of a wake-up call for us to start to do surveillance.
The health department is working on coordinating efforts between first responders and the medical examiner's offices to recognize the signs and test for the drug.
Xylazine is not necessarily part of your routine tox screens, and so you have to really look for it to find it.
While Narcan or naloxone can help those overdosing on opioids, it does not reverse the effects of xylazine, which impacts breathing.
So you still have to deal with a depressed respiratory breathing and a depressed central nervous system.
Local officials ruled the person did in fact die from a mixture of xylazine and other drugs. According to recent data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the percentage of fatal opioid overdoses in which xylazine was detected increased by 276% between January of 2019 through June of 2022. Coming up, fewer people use paper checks, but check fraud is on the rise. What you need to know about check washing after the break. Welcome back to Investigate TV. Fraudsters are always looking for new ways to get your money, and sometimes that involves a new take on an old scam. Rachel DePompa talks to an expert about the check washing scheme.
Check fraud is on the rise again, even as people are using fewer checks. The U.S. Treasury Department even put out a warning about check fraud linked to mail theft. Michael Joyce with the financial firm Agili says check washing is the one that you need to know about.
Fraudsters will literally steal mail out of your mailbox. I've seen stories where letter carriers have been attacked to get the keys for the mailboxes. Even putting checks in a box in front of a bank branch is not safe.
The scammers steal signed checks from the mail and use chemicals to wipe out the dollar amounts, making them worth even more money. Then they find a way to wash away the recipient's name on the check, and they make it payable to a fake identity before cashing it. Last year, the number of check fraud cases reported by banks nearly doubled to 680,000 from 350,000 in 2021. That's according to FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Criminals are even selling copies of washed checks online. If you can, avoid mailing checks. If you have to use a blue box, don't let your check sit there overnight. Put the check in before the day's last scheduled pickup and set up direct payments for your bills through your bank account. If you've been the victim of check washing, tell your local police department, but also report it to the Postal Inspection Service.
And that's it for us. Thanks for joining us here on Investigate TV. Hope to see you next week.